So, I finally picked up The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And honestly, this book is nothing like your typical self help guide. If you go in expecting endless positivity and you can do anything mantras, you're in for a surprise. Instead, Manson takes a brutally honest approach. Life is limited. You can't care about everything. And the key to living well is deciding what actually deserves your energy. The central idea of the book is deceptively simple. Manson argues that we all have a limited number of things we can truly give a fuck about in life. Trying to care about everything leads to stress, burnout, and disappointment. The trick is to choose wisely, to focus on what truly matters and let the rest go. And that choice is where personal freedom and happiness start. One of the first things that hit me is how Manson challenges our obsession with positivity. So many self help books tell you to think positive, eliminate all negativity, and always strive for happiness. But Manson flips that on its head. He says embracing life's struggles, failures, and limitations is far more valuable than trying to avoid discomfort. Problems are inevitable, and the key is learning which problems you're willing to deal with. That perspective felt really refreshing because it acknowledges reality instead of pretending everything can be perfect. Another big idea in the book is about responsibility. Manson emphasizes that no matter what happens in your life, good or bad, you're ultimately responsible for how you respond. It's easy to blame other people, circumstances, or luck, but that only robs you of control. Owning your choices and reactions, even when life isn't fair, is empowering. It's not about blame. It's about acknowledging your role and deciding how you want to act moving forward. Manson also talks a lot about values, and this is where the book gets really practical. He points out that our problems aren't the problem themselves, it's what we value that determines our struggles. If your values are shallow, materialistic, or external, you're constantly chasing things that don't bring real fulfillment. But if you develop deeper, internal values, like honesty, creativity, or meaningful relationships, your life starts to feel more grounded and purposeful. In other words, it's not about avoiding pain, it's about choosing the right things to care about. One of my favorite sections was about failure and rejection. Manson argues that failure isn't something to be afraid of, it's an essential part of growth. Every time you fail or get rejected, you learn something about yourself, your limits, and your priorities. The key is to embrace it, reflect on it, and use it to get stronger. That mindset shift from fearing failure to seeing it as a necessary step was a game changer for me. Another thing that stood out is how he addresses entitlement and self-importance. Manson points out that many of us think life owes us something, or that we deserve certain outcomes simply for trying. But reality doesn't work that way. Success, respect, and happiness aren't guaranteed. They're earned through effort, sacrifice, and resilience. Accepting this truth is uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Once you stop expecting life to be fair, you start taking real responsibility for building the life you want. The book also dives into mortality, which might sound heavy, but it's surprisingly motivating. Manson reminds us that our time is finite, and that awareness can clarify what really matters. When you accept that life is short, it becomes easier to focus on what's meaningful and let go of trivial worries. It's about picking your battles and being intentional with your energy, because once you understand what you truly care about, everything else just falls away. What I really appreciated is Manson's writing style. It's casual, funny, and honest, like having a no-nonsense friend tell you the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat reality, and he doesn't pretend there's a perfect formula for happiness. Instead, he gives practical wisdom that's easy to relate to, but also challenges you to think critically about your own life choices. So here's my honest take. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck isn't about apathy or laziness. It's about clarity, focus, and living intentionally. It's about deciding what's worth your energy, embracing discomfort, taking responsibility, and building a life that aligns with your deepest values. If you're tired of endless self-help fluff and want something that actually makes you reflect and take action, this book delivers. At the end of the day, Manson's message is simple but powerful. Life is hard, limited, and imperfect, and that's okay. You don't need to give a fuck about everything. You just need to choose carefully, own your decisions, and face life head on. Doing that might be uncomfortable, but it's also the key to living a meaningful, resilient, and truly fulfilling life.